So in a minute here when we start, if you don't mind, I will begin the meeting, kind of explain the circumstances, and then we can begin our committee of the whole. So Mayor, let me know when you've turned things on, which I think you have now, right?
I've got it on, it's streaming live on Zoom and it's almost done on Facebook.
Okay, why don't you let me know when we are streaming on Facebook?
Okay, it appears it's up, well, not Mr. President, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Esquire, Mr. Law Director.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'll call the meeting to order, Committee of the Whole of City Council at 6:45 this evening. I'm serving as the Law Director and at your pleasure as the temporary chair of this meeting based on some unusual circumstances. Typically, the President of City Council would chair this meeting and preside. As some of you may know, he is recovering from COVID-19. He tested positive. He experienced some symptoms. They were such that he went to the hospital for a couple of days at Mercy Hospital. I'm happy to report that he's home now. He came home on Friday. I've talked to him and he wants to pass along his gratitude to all the employees at Mercy Hospital, the nurses, staff, doctors, everyone that helped in his care. He said it's truly remarkable, and we're very fortunate to have Mercy Hospital in our community. But Rich is still recovering and is not able to attend tonight's meeting. It's his plan and desire to be at the next meeting and share that as President of Council. As you know, your President Pro Tem also, he resigned on January 2nd in order to take the position of Seneca County Commissioner. He was elected to that position this past November. So that leaves a vacancy in the position of President Pro Tem of City Council. That is filled based on the charter by a majority vote of the remaining members of City Council. But that needs to be done by resolution at a council meeting. So for purposes of the committee of the whole, my suggestion is that if you would allow me to just serve as the chair for this particular meeting, and we will conduct whatever business that you desire. Typically, we'll talk about some procedural things that may occur at the upcoming council meeting and any other business. At the beginning of the council meeting, what I would suggest that at 7 o'clock, that I will call the meeting to order. I will then ask Councilman Jones to give the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then the roll call will be taken. I'll ask the clerk then, and this is all for the record, ask the clerk to read the letter of resignation of Tyler Schuff. And then at that point, I will turn to council with the issue of the election of a President Pro Tem. And I would expect then discussion, and which should lead to a motion to introduce a resolution electing a person so named as the President Pro Tem. I'll seek a second, further discussion, and then eventually a vote. And whoever is then elected will be administered the oath via Zoom. We'll do it a little different. We won't be repeating back and forth. It'll be the whole oath with the person giving the appropriate response of I do and I will. And then at that point, I would turn the meeting over to the new President Pro Tem of City Council to conduct and lead the rest of the meeting. That is my suggested plan for the next 15 minutes or so. But I wanted to see if there was any questions or concerns of any of the council members regarding that process. Seeing and hearing no objections, then I will assume then that that's acceptable. And we'll move into the business of the committee of the whole. Are there any suspensions this evening? Mayor, do you have any suspensions to request from City Council?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. I am requesting suspension of ordinances 2021 and 2022. 2021, I'm sure Councilman Leopard will probably discuss it either during when the ordinance is read or during his report, but that was one that we held a meeting last week to discuss the items. It is for the 2021 street paving list. I plan under my mayor's report to again list the streets that are being paved for the public. But the sooner we get the street paving list suspended and passed, the sooner we're able to begin work on street paving and reconstruction this summer. And honestly, it saves us money because just like when you're hiring someone to do work on your house, your car, whatever, when they're busier, the prices are higher. It's the same way with us with paving. If we get in at the beginning of the line with our paving program and bid it, we have the luxury of choosing any week essentially or weeks this summer to have our program completed, which means the engineer's office and the public works department can time it perfectly with their schedules in order to maximize their efficiency. But also being the first ones in the gate at the beginning of the year allows us to save money because those contractors always in the past and hopefully this year again will bid with their best price versus if we wait until later in the year. So for those reasons, I'm asking for suspension of ordinance 20-1 and then also ordinance 20-2. I think speaks for itself. It is to provide funds for expenses that were already approved in 2020, but had to be carried over into 2021 because we either hadn't received bills or purchase orders, et cetera. So it's already expenses that have been approved, but we're requesting suspension because we will be receiving invoices and in some cases have already. Things need paid. So those two ordinances, I do request council please consider suspension of the 3 reading rule and pass this evening.
Are there any questions for the mayor regarding his explanation? I will also, Councilman Leopard.
I would just like to correct the mayor, ordinance number 21-1.
Thank you. I'm probably still saying 20.
And also I'll note that 21-2, the exhibit was sent by the clerk to everyone today. And that is a part of the ordinance that's being introduced this evening. That's the list of the various items that are carried over in the budget. Councilman Jones.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I was don't unmute. And that's the one that was 59 pages long. We just received this afternoon, correct?
Is that the length of it, Finance Director?
Yes, it is quite long.
Okay. Could you or someone summarize that 59 pages? I sort of scrolled through it, but I didn't comprehend it, if you will, or understand it.
Sure, this is any purchase order where we have an invoice that we're going to need to pay that was either in 20 or in some cases, we have a couple of 19s that are still open for facade projects that we actually gave extensions to. So any of those that we know we're going to end up paying, we wanted to carry these over so that they can come out of that year's budget instead of 2021. So that's what this whole list is for.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other business for the committee of the whole? Councilman Perry.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to be untabling the ordinances that have to do with the joint public hearing, if there is nothing, if we decide to go forward with it.
The answer is no, because the process in the charter requires that following this public hearing, the planning commission needs to meet separately from city council. And they will review the comments that were received at the joint hearing, any additional comments at their meeting, and then they will make a written recommendation to city council. And once that recommendation is received, then at that time, council will then take the ordinance off the table. So that will probably be at the next meeting on the 19th. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Law Director. I stand corrected. That was not 59 pages. It was 39 pages, but that's beside, it got explained. And I don't know, now is a good time to bring it up if we got 5 minutes. But the year-end audit was, I think, 159 pages long. I scrolled through 59 pages and scrolled pretty fast, didn't comprehend them. Maybe got eyesore, did not really look at the next 100 pages. Could someone summarize that 159 page annual audit either now, later, or email me and kind of give me a explanation?
Mayor?
Yeah, I was going to cover it a little bit in my mayor's report very briefly.
Okay, well, all right, good.
Yeah, it would probably be a better time then anyway, since it is our annual city audit. It's probably a better time to discuss it then once the meeting's begun, when we probably have more people out there watching so they can hear the feedback, if that's all right. But I will cover it briefly. But if you have any specific questions or things that you want to ask us later, we're happy to get you those answers.
Any other business for the committee of the whole? Councilman Gillig.
Yes, thank you, Law Director. Resolution 21.2, will that be a one reading resolution for Mr. Supants?
That is, yes, that's a one reading. That was, charter requires that the meeting after the request is made by the mayor, that the council will approve that or disapprove it, I suppose. But for this case, for Mr. Supants, I assume you will approve that resolution this evening. Any other business for the committee of the whole? Seeing none, I will adjourn the committee of the whole, and we'll wait a minute until 7 o'clock.
Now's probably the best time to bring this up, but go Browns, go Buckeyes.
And
Councilman Jones.
this may not be a correct time, but I have driven down Jefferson Street the past couple evenings, and those 10 new lights they got and the trees, et cetera, really sets that area off. So someone did a real nice job on that.
Thank you, Matt Watson. He and there was a team of other people that worked on that project, but Matt was instrumental in getting that project completed. It's now 7 o'clock and I will call the first meeting of 2021 of Tiffin City Council to order. The invocation and pledge will be led by Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Father God, we come to you before you as a humble people. Please guide us in making decisions on property, finances, etc., for the good of the Tiffin community. Please continue looking after the first responders who give their best to protect us. Amen. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
Nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If the clerk now will take the roll, please.
Councilman Jones,
Present.
Councilman Leopard,
Here.
Councilman Perry,
Here.
Councilwoman Boyle,
Here.
Councilman Gillig,
Here,
Councilwoman Yanatuno. Here.
Thank you, Clerk Ann Forrest. As the attending public will recognize, I'm not the president of City Council. I'm Brent Howard, the law director for the city of Tiffin. We have a little unusual circumstance procedurally this evening, so I am starting the meeting. Council President Fote is ill. He is doing much better. He did test positive for COVID-19 and received quality care at Mercy Hospital and was discharged and is getting better every day. And our prayers go out to Rich, and he is looking forward to being with us again in 2 weeks. In his absence, we would typically turn to the President Pro Tem to conduct and preside at the meeting. However, we have a situation where there's a vacancy in that office. And at this time, I will have the Clerk of Council read written communication that we received from Tyler Schuff.
This is dated January 2nd. He said, City of Tiffin, as of today, on January 2nd, 2021 at 11:59 p.m., I will be submitting my resignation on the Tiffin City Council. I'm very humbled and privileged to have had the opportunity to work with all of you and our various city officials. It's been a great experience, and I'll always have a special place in my heart for the city and all of you that I've had the privilege to work with. This isn't a goodbye, but I'll see you soon. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you in the future and continuing to grow Tiffin and Seneca County. I love you all very much. Respectfully, Tyler J. Schuff.
Thank you, Ann. So without the president in attendance and without a President Pro Tem, the first order of business this evening is for City Council to fill the vacancy. And the charter requires that when there's a vacancy, it shall be filled by a majority vote of the remaining members of City Council. So at this time, I would lay the issue of election of a President Pro Tem before City Council members. Is there any discussion, comments? And eventually I would ask for a motion to approve a resolution electing a person that would be named President Pro Tem. Councilman Perry.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. I would like to throw out Mr. Ben Gillig. I think he'd be an excellent choice. He's very good with his words, and he's eloquent, and I think he would be an excellent President Pro Tem. So I'd be more than happy to throw that motion out when it comes time, but he would be my pick.
So I guess not a motion at this time, but for discussion, Councilman Perry's statement. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Law Director. I will concur what Councilman Perry just said about Ben Gillig for President Pro Tem. He's heads up the finance subcommittee, and he's knowledgeable in that area. He seems to get along well with the mayor. And I think those are some of the criteria that we should be looking for.
Are there any other comments? Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, thank you. I just also wanted to make the comment. I've had the pleasure of working with Ben on City Council the past year, and I've been able to see his dedication and extreme work ethic that he puts forth to council. So I absolutely concur with that, those statements, and he would be my vote as well.
Thank you. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Law Director. I would so move that nominations be closed.
And will I entertain also part of that motion to, I guess we haven't had a nomination yet. So is that a motion to introduce a resolution electing a particular person for President Pro Tem?
Yes, it is.
And who is that person?
Ben Gillig.
Ben Gillig. So I have a motion to introduce and pass a resolution electing Benjamin Gillig as President Pro Tem. Is there a second to that motion? Councilwoman Yanatuno, second the motion.
I'll second, Law Director.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Law Director. My discussion to the motion is probably too late, but it was an afterthought, and I was going to ask if anyone else, Councilman Leopard, Councilwoman Yanatuno, if they had an interest in this position before we get any further, but maybe too late at this point.
Yeah, there is a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if I would ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Airy,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Very humbly, yes.
Yanatuno.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Congratulations, Councilman Ben Gillig. And Ben, if you will, please, I'll administer the oath to you. And as I mentioned before to council about the procedure, if you could wait until I'm finished, and the appropriate response will be, I do and I will. So if you will raise your right hand, please. Do you, Benjamin Gillig, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and the Charter of the City of Tiffin? Will you in all respects uphold and enforce the general laws of the State of Ohio and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Tiffin? And will you faithfully discharge the duties of President Pro Tem of the City of Tiffin, Seneca County, Ohio, upon which you are about to enter?
I do and I will.
Best wishes, congratulations. And now I will turn the meeting over to President Pro Tem Ben Gillig.
Thank you, Law Director, and I want to thank my colleagues on City Council for their support. It truly means a lot. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to serve with all of you good folks. With that being said, I would like to now open our joint public hearing for City Council this evening, which will be held via Zoom for the consideration of Ordinance 20-130, an ordinance zoning approximately 6.33 acres of land owned by Hedgegate Condominiums Association in the 4th Ward of the city as Zone R4 Multiple Family Residential District, compatible with adjacent land use and meeting requirements of Tiffin City Charter and the codified ordinances, as well as Ordinance 20-131, an ordinance zoning approximately 5.352 acres of land owned by the Fox Revocable Living Trust dated December 9th, 2008 Russell J. Fox and Beverly K. Fox granters, and district compatible with adjacent land use and meeting requirements of the Tiffin City Charter and codified ordinances. And anyone wishing to address council may direct their questions to council president when so prompted. I would like to now turn the meeting over to the chair, Mayor Aaron D. Montz.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I am going to call the January 4th City of Tiffin Planning Commission meeting to order as well. I know we have Matt Watson, city engineer, on here. So Matt, if you would please dispense with the roll call of the Planning Commission.
Rod Morrison,
Present.
John Bing, Bryce Riggs,
Present.
Bob Williams,
Bob, I see you're here, but you'll have to unmute if you could, please.
Vicky Wilkins,
Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Bob. We got you. Thank you.
Not present. I'm here.
Thank you, Bob. Go ahead, Matt.
Vicky Wilkins,
Present.
Dale Thornton,
Present.
Mayor Motts.
Present. With that, Mr. President, we do have a quorum of the Planning Commission, so I turn the meeting back over to you for public comment.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If anyone wishes to address council this time, please hit the raise hand button and you will be let in by Mayor Motts.
All right, Mr. President, I guess I'll remind folks, if you do wish to speak from the public, there is a button on the Zoom screen. It says raise hand. All you do is tap that and I will bring you into the meeting in the order in which you hit the raise hand button. So I do have one so far up. So any other members of the public wishing to, make sure you do hit the button. Mr. President, I am letting in, it appears to be Jane Morgan is the individual's name.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes. And they are on their way in. Jane, you will have to, or I'm assuming it is Jane, that's what your name comes up as here. You will have to hit the unmute button to speak and to address council.
Good evening, Jane. Thank you for joining us. I see you are unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
Not sure if she's having audio issues, Mr. President, but she is unmuted on our screens.
Well, I certainly would love to hear the input that she'll provide. So we'll hang tight here for a bit. Technology is great when it works. Jane, can you hear us?
I'm not sure what else to suggest, Mr. President. It does show that she is not muted on Zoom, so it could be that her device is still muted somehow and not trying to obviously put words in her mouth, but she may be having difficulties unmuting that. But unfortunately, we cannot hear anything if she is attempting to speak.
Law Director.
If I can make a comment for Jane Morgan and anyone else that might be attending, this is an opportunity to ask questions, make comment at this public hearing. There will be a follow-up meeting, public meeting held by the Planning Commission. And I believe that it may be in the next couple of days. I don't recall exactly when it is, but it will be a Zoom meeting, and possibly the mayor or the city engineer could tell us exactly when it is. But that would be another opportunity for anyone from the public to attend and hear more about the matters, and also to ask any questions at that time. And then the process is then whatever the Planning Commission recommends, it'll be put in writing and submitted to City Council for their next meeting. And that will be a public meeting on the 19th, at which time you can also express your opinions to City Council. So there's multiple chances and opportunities for you to ask questions and make comments. Maybe that explains a little bit of the process and also gives Jane Morgan and others time to figure out how to make comments this evening.
Councilman Leopard.
Would it be possible for Ms. Morgan to telephone someone and we could be able to hear through a microphone or whatever?
And so I was just trying to think, Mr. President, if anyone had her number, we could try to call her and put her over microphone here. I'm just not sure how to go about doing that, or allowing her to.
By any chance, has she attempted to comment on the Facebook live stream?
Let me check. No, Mr. President, there are 2 comments, but they're just congratulating you on being elected President Pro Tem. So
I might be able to help, Mayor. I believe that Jane Morgan might have called me about a unrelated matter with the city today. And I believe that I have her telephone number. Just, I don't know if it's a coincidence. And so I could call her and on my cell phone, I believe, let's just check.
I'm assuming she can hear us because she did put her hand up and is following along. So hopefully if she hears this, Jane, if your phone does ring, it's the law director calling you to try to get you on here for the meeting. So we're doing the best we can to try to get you in. I don't think we've had this issue yet in the close to a year that we've been doing these meetings. I think every time someone's come on, we've been able to hear them. So this is, I think, about our only idea at this point.
Mayor, the only suggestion I might have is if Jane could call your office, you could put her on your speakerphone and we may be able to hear it through your speakerphone.
Yeah, if Brent can't, we can try that option. If I can figure out how to transfer it from the mainline phone to my phone without hanging up on her.
Well, maybe I didn't, you know what, I should have her number. Let's see. Yes. I'm sorry, I do have it now. So I will call her on my cell phone. Hi, Jane. May I put you on speakerphone for this meeting? Okay, Jane, if you can speak up, and we'll see if everyone attending by Zoom can hear you.
Okay, I just want to clarify what this letter we got in the mail means. Is it my understanding correct that you're wanting to change the zoning to multi-family? Is that correct?
Yeah, there are two ordinances that are being introduced, that were introduced regarding zoning that's for consideration at this public hearing. One involves property out on the east side of Tiffin and near Autumnwood. The second one is Hedgegate off of Co Street. Is that the one that you are calling about?
I'm calling about Hedgegate. And by the way, a message just came up on my screen that said I wasn't recognized as an attendee. That's why my microphone isn't letting me talk like everybody else.
Okay, so Mary, if you heard that,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Brent, I just moved her back out of the room, so she was in here. That's why she just got the notification. I moved her out of the room since it wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, and Jane, let me explain. And what this ordinance does is that we determined in looking at our zoning map, the city then we found that both of these properties involved with these ordinances, that they are not zoned under the Tiffin zoning code. So that means that the zoning of the property does not fall within the city of Tiffin's zoning code or the jurisdiction of our zoning code. And what has happened is that both these properties were annexed in the past, and for whatever reason, they were not zoned at the time that the annexation occurred. So they are still, you are zoned, but you are under Clinton Township zoning, not City of Tiffin zoning. And we believe the city initiated these ordinances, not the property owners. We believe that it would be appropriate for any property within the city should have a city zoning classification so that we can apply that zoning like we would to any property in the city. So we identified the appropriate zoning classification for the Hedgegate property. And based on the review of that, it was determined that that would be R4 multiple family residential district for the Hedgegate properties.
Does that mean that someone could build an apartment complex on the land?
Well, the property, I understand, is already built out. I think that's true. I don't know if there's any buildable property in Hedgegate. I think it's already built, so I think it would be difficult for anybody, if not impossible. Now, I suppose, and I'm kind of looking to the city engineer who deals with zoning matters on a more regular basis than I would. But I suppose if there was a tear down of some property, then an apartment building could be constructed on that property as long as it complied with all of the zoning requirements. And there's a lot more to than just the type of use of property. There would be setbacks and other zoning requirements.
One of the neighbors that received a letter shared that he felt that the city was going to change the zoning so that there could be apartment building built on some land where there's a bunch of trees. And one of the issues in our neighborhood, we don't have it, we're lucky, knock on wood, but some of the residents have water that backs up from the sewer. And so if you add an apartment building, how are they going to do that? Because the land behind the condo kind of goes down like in a dip. So I would think it would be problems for all the homeowners around, and we would get more water. The ones that are getting it in their basement. We don't, but our neighbors do.
Yeah, the property that I think you are referring to is outside the city, correct?
No, well, it could be. I'm not 100% sure. I just know that my backyard faces the hedge gate, and then I go down to Space and turn left. I don't know where the city limit ends and begins.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you the intention of the ordinance is just to zone the Hedgegate property and nothing more. And so there is no any planned construction in that area that we've heard of. Of course, we don't initiate any construction in the city of Tiffin, and I'm not aware of any proposed construction. And this would only apply to Hedgegate Condominium Association. The property was annexed. It would not apply to any nearby woods that's not in the zone, the area to be zoned.
Okay. If it was annexed, then you're stating that they could build an apartment then.
Well, if an area was annexed, then at that time, that property would have to be zoned for some type of use, and there would have to be a separate ordinance, a separate public hearing, separate consideration of what the appropriate zoning classification would be for that property. But that doesn't really apply in this case because we're only zoning the area of the Hedgegate, which is in the city and does not have a zoning classification right now.
Okay, I appreciate you clarifying that, and it helps me understand what the letter was in the Gossipville neighborhood. So we'll put that to rest. And I greatly appreciate everybody's patience.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Mr. Mayor, do we have any other hands up to participate?
I do not see any, but we'll go one more time. If there are any members of the public who wish to address council, please now click the raise hand function and you'll be let in to speak to council. All right, Mr. President, I do have another hand. It only says Richard. So for the record, Richard, we're going to let you in, but we'll need you to state your full name, please, so that we can take note of that on our minutes. And Richard is on his way in. And Richard, you'll just need to unmute yourself.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. My name is Richard Bird. I actually live in the Woodmore Condo Association, which would be, I believe, east of the property we're discussing, which I believe is a farm field now. And this is on ordinance 2131. My question would be, what is a zone M2 heavy industrial district?
City Engineer Watson, would you be able to answer the question for Mr. Bird?
Absolutely. So M2 is a heavy industrial zone district, which will allow permitted uses that fit that characteristic of heavy industrial. So this specific ordinance, the property that we are looking to assign a zoning classification already is partially zoned M2. So ordinance 20-131, just the north part of that property was actually annexed into the city of Tiffin in 1987, separately from the southern portion. So we're just looking to assign that entire property the same zoning classification, because as the law director said previously, when that was annexed into the city of Tiffin in 1987, it was never assigned a zoning classification by the city of Tiffin. So our zoning map still designated it as a Clinton Township zone district. So M2 is heavy industrial, which everything to the south of that north piece of that property is already zoned M2 heavy industrial. So it'd just be an extension thereof. As the law director stated with the Hedgegate, we initiated the process of the city There's no plan for development on this site that we know of at this time. It is currently being used as an agricultural farm field. Everything that we know, the intent moving forward is to continue to use it as an agricultural farm field. It's just cleaning up the map and extending that zoning classification over the entire parcel, which the parcel is on the southern half is already zoned M2 heavy industrial, which will allow pretty much any type of use. But you know, as you're developing, it's site specific to the needs and the availability of different features of that site to be able to develop it one way or another.
Any further questions, Mr. Byrd?
Yes, I guess not really questions, but comments, I guess. What I believe that the south side of this would be the railroad tracks, and on the other side is, I believe, residential condos and this sort of thing. And we're on the east side, which is all condos. And also the north side is all condos. And then I see on the west end, it's mostly residential homes and this sort of thing. So I just was kind of, my fellow condo associates are concerned that what will be moving in there at some time. So that was the main concern. So we thought we should address this.
I guess why would they zone it heavy industrial if
Well,
there's
they're
already a
matching
lot
up
of
the other.
So what it seems to me, if I can call on the expertise of our members of the Planning Commission, it does not appear as though there are any plans to do any sort of new developments. This is more, for lack of a better term, a bookkeeping type issue. Just since they've been annexed into the city, we need to have them fall under the city zoning code. But there's no plans that we know of, at least in the immediate future, to build any heavy industrial or any or like a multifamily apartment complex at the Hedge Gate. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. President. The pieces of property were just out of the city and were never zoned. They were annexed to the city, they were never zoned. So this just cleans everything up and it keeps the zoning with what the zoning right next door, right at the same parcels have that zoning already. It just keeps everything clean versus trying to create an island of some kind of a new zoning.
Law Director.
And for that property, the Fox property is, I understand, is over 11 acres in total. So over half of that is already a zoned M2 heavy industrial. If for some reason that they would want to do some development, and I understand that they don't, they want to farm that property, and that may be the most appropriate use for the property. But if there ever would, there'd be some confusion because half the property is under the jurisdiction of Clinton Township zoning. The other half is the city of Tiffin. And so it would create some confusion as to what zoning permit and for what part of the property. So every tax parcel in the city should have the same zoning classification, whatever that may be. So it's not, and should be in one jurisdiction, the city of Tiffin, and not in a separate jurisdiction. So that's the other aspect of cleaning this up. And while I have the floor, I gave you a revised description. I sent that by email to city council members. And what I would ask the Planning Commission to consider at their meeting is that their recommendation should come back to approve amending the ordinance 131 with the corrected Exhibit A, which is the actual description of the 5.352 acres. And that was referenced in the body of the ordinance, but the original exhibit had just a 4+ acre parcel. And that was what was actually annexed, but it didn't include some of the right-of-way along there that was never zoned. So the Exhibit A that I gave you, which is a legal description of the 5.352 acres, is the area that is not zoned right now. And I would ask the Planning Commission, part of the recommendation, if they approve this, is that they ask that council amend the ordinance to include the revised Exhibit A. So, and I don't want to, I know I went off onto a different subject matter, so I want to go back to Mr. Byrd, Richard Byrd, and if there are any more questions or comments that he has, it'd be appropriate for him to address council now.
Any additional
Yeah.
questions or comments, Mr. Byrd?
Yes, I would suggest that maybe it would be nice. I got this letter, which I really appreciate, but it really didn't explain a lot. Maybe some type of a description of the property, or maybe some type of a drawing or something would be a lot more helpful to, to understand this a little better. So that would be my only comment at this time.
Very good. Well, Mr. Byrd, we thank you for your time and your comments. And if you have no additional questions, we again thank you and turn it back over to the Honorable Aaron D. Muntz.
All right, if there are any other residents wishing to address City Council and the Planning Commission on this matter, please click the raise hand button and we will let you in. I do not see any more hands, Mr. President.
Very good, Mr. Mayor. City Engineer Watson, just a quick question for you. What do the letters look like that you send? Because that certainly was an interesting point by Mr. Byrd. And you are one of the best people that I know in terms of explanations. I didn't know if that was something maybe you would like to look into any further. I know this is why we have the public hearings. It was wonderful that we had Ms. Morgan and Mr. Byrd join us, but any thoughts on Mr. Byrd's comment?
Absolutely. So actually the notices for the joint hearing between the Planning Commission and City Council are actually sent by the Clerk of Council. But what those are is essentially just a notice of hearing, which lays out the ordinance and what we're looking to discuss and when and where the meeting will be held. And for this case, a Zoom login information to access the meeting. So they are very basic and brief. It makes it a little tougher. If we were at a joint hearing, I probably wouldn't have necessarily the information with us as we're usually taking public input or comment. But typically at our Planning Commission meetings, we do send dockets out to all the Planning Commission members, which have further information with maps and everything like that, that when we're typically having a Planning Commission, we're all sitting around the table in a meeting room and everybody can see the maps and discuss therefrom. I do have accessibility right now to some maps in the dockets that I prepared for the Planning Commission that I could share my screen and further show what we're trying to accomplish with each ordinance. But yes, what is sent to the property owners is very basic. We send a letter to every property owner that's adjacent to, contiguous to, or across the street therefrom of each of the specific matters. So there is a significant amount of letters sent. In regard to the hedge gate, we didn't just send one to the condominium association, we sent one to each property owner within Hedgegate. So every unit in Hedgegate received a letter. I believe we probably did the same thing with Autumnwood. So it was an extensive list, extensive mailing, basically here to hear public comment. As the law director did state, the Planning Commission is having a follow-up meeting on both matters on Wednesday, January 6th, 2021 at 3 p.m. via Zoom. If anybody from the public has any comments or questions or wants to attend that meeting and doesn't have the Zoom login information, they're more than welcome to contact the city engineer's office at 419-448-5425 either tomorrow or Wednesday before the 3 o'clock meeting. And I'd be more than happy to send them the login information as we'd like to hear their input as we work through both of these matters.
Very good. Thank you, City Engineer Watson. Do we have any additional hands, Mr. Mayor?
There are none. So last call, if there is anyone out there in the audience wishing to speak, please raise your hand at this time. And there are no hands, Mr. President.
Very good. May I ask, Mr. Mayor, do I declare the hearing closed or do you adjourn as the chairperson for the Planning Commission?
Typically, the council presidents just gavel the meeting to an end.
Very good. Any additional comments from the good folks of the Planning Commission? Very well. We'll go ahead and declare the meeting of the Planning Commission closed at 7:40 p.m. And I thank the Planning Commission for their time this evening. Moving on, we did receive from Council Clerk Forrest our minutes for our regular December 21st meeting, as well as our special meeting on December 28th. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, they will stand approved. Committee reports, I do not have one for finance. Law and Community Planning, Councilwoman Boyle.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Materials and Equipment, Councilman Jones.
Thank you. I believe I have nothing tonight.
Very good, thank you. Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilman Perry.
No report, Mr. President.
Very good. Recreation and Public Property, Councilwoman Iana Tuno.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Streetwalks. Oh my, different kind of meeting. Street, Sidewalks, and Sewer Committee, Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes and no. We did have a committee meeting scheduled on December 28th, but due to lack of a quorum, the meeting wasn't held. Councilman Jones and I, along with Law Director Howard, City Administrator Thornton, City Engineer Watson, and Mayor Motz, we had discussion concerning street paving. Out of that discussion came ordinance number 21-1, authorizing the city administrator to prepare plans and specification, advertise for and receive bids, and recommend and execute a contract for the 2021 street paving program and declaring an emergency. City Engineer Watson led us in discussion and informed us of how his department grades the particular streets. And he has already prepared a street paving list for 2021. We reviewed the list, and we also reviewed alternate streets that can be paved, providing what the bids are. So ordinance 21-1 came out of that discussion, and we will discuss that later this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman Leopard. Law Director Howard.
Just to clarify, I guess I would, I attended when the quorum was not present, and I think it was more of a fact-finding, information gathering by the two council members, and then Councilman Leopard, then on his own individually, as a council member may, requested that the legislation be prepared based on that factual information that was gathered by the council members.
Very good. Any additional comments or questions to Councilman Leopard's report? Thank you, Councilman Leopard. We do not have an economic development and downtown planning report. That was Councilman Schuff's, and we wish him well on his next adventure. Does anyone see a need for a committee of the whole? Seeing none, we will move on to reports of the officers. His Honor, Mayor Aaron D. Montz.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of council this evening. I'll try to keep it shorter. I know the last several reports I've had have been fairly lengthy, so I'll see if I can get through this one quicker than a lot of the previous reports have been. So obviously we have begun 2021, fiscal year 2021 at City Hall. While we do not have the final numbers computed yet for the very end of December, I think we can all admit that we are much happier than we expected to be at this time with how the city ended up financially. To cover those numbers, the most recent update, which are numbers through the 30th, so we are still missing the very end of the year numbers. We broke even, and we broke even about as close as you possibly can get to breaking even to a previous year. We were up $4,788 in revenue in our income tax returns out of darn near $10.5 million. That's how close we were in 2020 to 2019 with the preliminary numbers. Now, Kathy, in the very near future, will get out the final numbers to everyone. But if you recall, 6, 8, 9 months ago, we were having discussions right here in these council meetings about predicting significant drops in revenue due to the pandemic and the shutdown that followed. In fact, the Ohio Municipal League, the County Commissioners Association, RETA, the state of Ohio, were telling cities it could be as much as 15, 20, 25% revenue declines due to the pandemic. And luckily for us in Tiffin, that did not come to fruition. You all recall we had a very good first quarter, so that really helped us get through. We had a terrible second quarter, and then things really picked up after that. The economy is coming back strong. The unemployment rate is almost identical to where it was a year ago. So all indications are, barring another shutdown or significant explosion in cases with the pandemic, that we have weathered the storm. And this continues to speak to the fact of, I know City Council understands it, and this is why the administration always tries to keep at least right around $2 million of reserves on hand because of rainy days. By having those reserves, which the $2 million is the approximation of what the auditors suggest we keep on file, that allows us to get through really bad times. You think back to the Great Recession we experienced in 2008, 2009, the little mini recession that we had in the middle of this year where the economy really contracted very quickly due to the pandemic. And we weathered the storm here at City Hall because of those reserves. So I guess I just continue to echo to all of you that we need to keep in mind that we have got to keep our reserves healthy. We can't spend like drunken sailors like they do in Washington, D.C. And we need to really keep our finger on the pulse of the city's economy and our financial situation here. But overall, very positive news. Looking back through, you can kind of piece out the months that we struggled because of the pandemic and kind of get a picture in your head as far as what could have been for the city of Tiffin had we not experienced a pandemic. And we likely would have seen one of the largest tax revenue increases in our city's history had it not been for the pandemic. You look at the first quarter of the year, we were up almost 15% revenue. If you look, once we get through those bad months that we had, and revenue was up over 15% on average for those months. I know in my time here, I think the biggest revenue increase we've ever had in a single year was about 10%. We look that we could have blown that out of the water this year. And unfortunately, we're just not able to due to things out of our control. But I think that speaks volumes to the overall health and well-being of not only just the local economy, but also the fiscal responsibility of this administration and the members of council, our department heads, and our employees just watching out for sound fiscal policy here at City Hall. So thank you to all of our department heads, our employees, and City Council for continuing to assist us with that. Speaking of financial numbers, the audit has finally been completed. We were under audit by the state of Ohio, and we're pleased to report, and Kathy, I'm sure would echo this, that we had a very strong, solid audit. There were no hard findings. There were a couple of suggestions that the auditors from the state of Ohio recommended some potential changes. You may see a few new policies come before City Council to be approved. But Kathy, you can back me up, but they went through a lot of various funds and accounting and practices here at City Hall. And at the end of the day, the auditors found no real issues and gave us a very solid stamp of health for the city's overall standing and how we are following procedures, how we are depositing funds, and making sure that, of course, as we all know locally, no money is being misused or used incorrectly. The auditors gave us a very sound stamp of approval there with their formal report that I know in committee of the whole, Councilman Jones, you pointed out how many pages again, Ken?
159.
Yes, 159-page report from the state of Ohio audit that was conducted on the city of Tiffin. And from that audit, no real findings and just some suggestions. So Kathy, I want to thank you because you're the controller of finances at the end of the day for the city. And when you took over recently, you really inherited a mess over there. And lo and behold, you have exceeded, I believe, all of our expectations and done a tremendous job. And the fact that the state can issue a 159-page audit on the city's finances and not have any negative findings like that, I think it just speaks volumes to the job that you do as our director of finance. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it is a very extensive report, and I was very, very pleased with the result. It was very, very extensive, and they gave us a very good report, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, they went through a lot of those funds with a fine-tooth comb, and
they sure did.
As in-depth as they dive into the city's funds and how we are spending money and where we're spending money, and for them to come out with a clean bill of health like that, and especially for you being a brand new finance director like you are, kudos. We couldn't do it without you, and we can't thank you enough for the job well done in our finance office, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, just a very brief coronavirus update. There are currently 433 active cases in Seneca County. 2,699 individuals have recovered. Overall, just under 6% of all residents of Seneca County have had coronavirus. That is the total number of active cases, recoveries, deaths, hospitalizations, et cetera. So approximately 6% of the population in Seneca County has had coronavirus since the beginning of the pandemic, at least that is accounted for. Vaccinations are underway. It's obviously slow going because we can only vaccinate as many as we can receive vaccines for here in Seneca County. Mercy Hospital has completed most of their phase 1 employees at the hospital. The health department is also working to vaccinate local first responders. And then once that is completed, they plan to move into phase 1B. What I would encourage everyone to do is to get on the Seneca County Emergency Management Agency's website, which is senecacountyema.org. From there are updates being posted about the next phases and who's included in the next phases of vaccinations. And there is even an area that you can sign up for text and email alerts for anything from severe weather to road hazards to also being made aware of the next round of vaccinations. So please, it's called Seneca County EMA. That stands for Seneca County Emergency Management Agency.org. Sign up for those text alerts if you are interested in getting the vaccine or if you're interested in keeping up with local emergency alerts. It's completely free. You can opt into as many or as few of the alerts as you would like, but that in the future is going to be the best way for you to receive up-to-date information about the coronavirus vaccine and when you can receive it. We are speaking, and we being myself, our local task force that we have, and especially Health Commissioner Schweitzer, are speaking as often as they can to local media, such as the radio and to the newspaper. We're plastering things all over social media, but at the end of the day, the quickest way for you to get this information is going to be to go on the Seneca County EMA.org website and sign up for those text alerts because there is no database for Beth and her folks, the health department, to literally just start calling people. So I would encourage residents sign up senecacountyema.org, sign up for those text alerts or email alerts, whatever way you prefer them. This evening, I am asking City Council to suspend the 3 reading rule and approve and pass the 2021 street paving list and allow the city administrator to begin the process to go out for bids on that project. The reason for that is twofold. One, the quicker we get in the queue, which right now we're at the beginning of the year, means the more bang we will get for our paving dollar. The quicker you get bids sent out and submitted, the cheaper the prices have always been from the contractors, and also by allowing us to basically pick which weeks we want our paving, it allows the city engineer's office and our public works street department to best manage the project and their time and their schedule. So I would highly recommend City Council pass that program tonight at the meeting and not to delay it. I want to just read through really quickly the street lists again for the public that we plan to pave in 2021. And those streets are Bon Air Avenue, Caldwell Avenue. Excuse me, let me read the cross streets. Bon Air Avenue between West Market Street and the corporation limits. Caldwell Avenue from West Market Street to the corporation limits. Circular Street from Main Street to Hancock Street. Cottonwood Drive, Douglas Street, Dwight Street, Fifth Avenue from North Sandusky to Vine Street, Henry Street, Oakwood Drive, Tiber Road from North Sandusky to North Water Street, Vine Street from West Davis Street to Noble Street, Virginia Avenue, Webster Street from North Sandusky Street to North Washington Street. And then the alternate bids, which we hope to be able to include all of these as well, would be Allen Street from Wentz Street to Miami Street, Birchwood Drive, Elita Street, 3rd Avenue from North Sandusky Street to Grand Avenue, and Thomas Street from North Sandusky Street to the end. Now that, of course, does not include the paving that we plan to do with additional grant dollars. We will find out in the coming weeks if we've obtained 2 grants, and if so, we will have the largest amount of dollars ever spent in a single year on street paving here in the community in 2021. So I would urge council to please pass this 2021 pavement repair program tonight so that we can move forward as quickly as possible with street resurfacing and reconstruction in order to maximize our dollars that we have available and the efficiency of the city engineer's office and public works. Just a couple of other items. We're excited today. TSEP put out a press release. Zach Arnold at Arnold Machine has acquired a business known as Centricity Automation, and that facility will be moving to Tiffin. There's a couple of jobs with it now, but there is the potential for an influx of additional jobs once the facility is up and running. So I congratulate Zach Arnold, who is one of the shining stars of the Tiffin community, a graduate of Sentinel. And the things he continues to do with his business that has literally grown from his garage into a large manufacturing facility now at our industrial park has just been tremendous. So kudos to Zach and everyone at Arnold Machine for that positive piece moving forward. I do want to inform City Council that department heads will be coming before you beginning on February the 1st to give their annual reports and updates to City Council. The goal is to have one departmental update per night or per meeting for the next couple of months after that. The first one will be Matt Watson at the city engineer's office on February the 1st. We're in the process of scheduling everyone else. So be thinking over these next couple of months what kind of questions you may have as members of council to our various department heads and their activities, because starting on the 1st of February, they will be coming before you one by one at meetings to provide updates. With that group, it will also, we'll get TSEP in front of you, and also for the first time, the Seneca Regional Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Services will be presenting. The chamber will be going on March the 1st, just so you all have that made aware ahead of time if you have any questions for our chamber or the local visitors bureau, which is also run by the chamber. City Engineer Watson let me know this morning at our department head meeting that all of the bridge inspections for all of the City of Tiffin bridges have been completed. The good news is only one bridge on the entire list of bridges in the city of Tiffin declined, and that was the bridge on Sycamore Street. It went from a 6 to a 5. A 5 is still not bad shape. The scale is 1 to 9, 1 being the worst, 9 being the best. And as Engineer Watson pointed out to me this morning, you are not even eligible for state assistance or grant money until it at least becomes deteriorated to the point of a 4. So really, even though the bridge on Sycamore Street went from a 6 to a 5, it is still in no kind of danger or real need or concern. However, that allows us to continue to monitor it every year and check it and make repairs to extend its life. So very good news with that. And of course, I didn't cover the Ella Street Bridge. It did not decline any further from where it's at, but of course it is scheduled for replacement in less than 2 years. Speaking of the engineer's office, they're in the process of hiring a full-time aide position in the engineer's office. I know Director of HR Deb Reamer reported this morning, we already have 14 applicants in the matter of the job being posted for only about a week. It really seemed to take off on social media. I know we've had something like 7,000 views of the social media posts already, which is a very good sign. We're hoping to get some good applicants. We all know how busy the engineer's office is, and this aid will certainly help Matt Watson and his team upstairs with their workload and all of the projects that are going on across the community. The interim fire chief, Rob Chappell, also reported to me this year is the year that they formalized their applicant list at the fire department, and he said it was their largest applicant pool in 5 years at the Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division. So it's very nice to see that they have a deep pool to select from this year at the Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division for vacancies that will occur over the next couple of years. I would like to just take one short moment to congratulate Fred Stevens, who is our new Seneca County Sheriff, Tyler Schuff, who is a new Seneca County Commissioner, and Tony Paradiso, who was just elected to continue. He was already Commissioner through an unexpired term. I want to thank those 3 men for everything that they have done and continue to do for the Tiffin community. Fred Stevens' loss for the Tiffin Police Department and the residents of Tiffin is a big gain for all of us in Seneca County. Instead of the 18,000 people that live in Tiffin, now all 56,000 residents living in Seneca County will be able to benefit from both Sheriff Stevens and Commissioner Schuff's leadership that they showed off here at the city of Tiffin. And Tony Paradiso, I know, has done very well in his role as commissioner and will continue to do so over the next 5 years. I want to thank former Commissioner Shane Thomas for his 4 years of service. He was an absolute pleasure to work with, and I wish him nothing but the best in his future endeavors. And then one last reminder, Mr. President, City Hall and all non-essential offices will be closed on the 18th of January in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The annual Martin Luther King Jr. ceremony is still being held. However, it is not in person. It will be held online and a video recording will be made. So as soon as we have that information, we'll be sure to post that on our city social media so residents that wish to watch it and council members, et cetera, can do so. But our offices for non-essential personnel are closed here on the 18th in observance of that day. With that, Mr. President, it does conclude my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lots of wonderful news. Are there any additional comments or questions for Mayor Motz? Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing that our mayor and the auditors have overlooked is the computer system in the finance department that Kathy finally got under control. I know there was a lot of cuss words, probably not from Kathy, but from others, in getting that system implemented, up and running, and being a functional device for their department.
Very well said, Councilman Leopard. Councilman Perry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I've had a few people reach out to me asking about how they can apply for Councilman Schuff's seat. I didn't know when would be a good time, or if we know when that meeting will be held yet, or the process that goes into that?
I have not received any information. Since he was a Republican, it will be filled by the local Republican Central. But there has, to my knowledge, been no announcement of when that meeting will be held. I believe they have, Brent, is it 30 days to fill the vacancy, I believe.
That is correct, yes.
So it would be filled sometime here in the month of January. I have not heard when, but I would guess individuals who are interested in that seat, I've never sought an appointment from a central committee, but what others in the past have done, if they're interested, is they call or email or both the members of the local Republican Central Committee and essentially lobby them for their support, because those Republican Central Committee members that represent the city of Tiffin, there are 14 precincts, but I know not all the seats are filled. There's only 12 or 13 that are filled. Those 12 or 13 individuals will be the ones that will make the decision on who is the next city council person. So the individuals who are interested need to contact those men and women on the Tiffin Republican Central Committee, because city government has no say in who is seated. The local Republican Central Committee will replace Councilman Schuff. However, we need to remind everyone, petitions are due. I pull up the calendar. If you are going to run for a city office, petitions are due. They must be filed by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, February 3rd. And I'll tell you, this year, I don't envy any of you who are on the ballot this year. It is not going to be easy like previous years to collect the signatures that you need to run for office, because people are not out and about like they used to be. It's not as easy to collect them. A lot of individuals are not wanting to answer the door right now, not knowing who's there and what they may come in contact with. So unfortunately, the rules don't change. So you still have to collect signatures, and they're due. You have to have them turned in at the Board of Elections by the 3rd of February at 4 p.m. To have your name on the ballot for next year. And that does include Councilman Schuff's seat. So whoever the Republicans pick to fill Councilman Schuff's seat will only serve until the end of 2021. And then whoever is elected, whether it's the same person or someone different, will then take office at the beginning of 2022.
Law Director.
Yeah, and also to add regarding the nominating process, we do by charter have an open primary system. What that means is that it's not a partisan primary, that you are elected within a party primary. You may have your party affiliation next to your name on the ballot, but all electors of the city of Tiffin can vote for any candidate running in the primary. And then in a similar way, any qualified voter, elector may sign a petition, a nominating petition of a candidate, regardless of a party affiliation. So it makes it a little easier. So again, if you're a Republican, you don't have to get just Republican signers on your petition. You can get Democrats, and also for Democrats, you can get Republicans or independents.
Very good. Thank you, Law Director. Any additional questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we will move on to the report of Clerk of Council Ann Forrest.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ann. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
No report tonight, Mr. President, but I will have a full report for you at the next council meeting.
Outstanding. Thank you, Kathy. If I may ask, would you please share the names of your staff and possibly their, as I mean, I know I've seen firsthand with working with you on the Finance Committee, all the wonderful work you do, but as has been said, it does take a village. Would you mind just sharing your staff and their responsibilities?
Sure. We have in sewer revenue, we have Samantha, who is the manager, and Sherry. She takes care of a lot of the payments and things that come in. They work very well together, and we've had very few issues with sewer revenue. They're doing a great job. We have Linda Neely, who assists me and also is the head of the income tax. She's our tax commissioner. We have Aubrey DuRose, who is new, and she's doing a really wonderful job learning all the income tax. And we have some more plans for her as far as doing some cross training, which is something that we've needed to do and just haven't had a chance to yet. And we have Michelle, who is doing our accounts payable. She's doing a really wonderful job. And we have Mary Kaufman, who is our payroll manager. She's doing a fantastic job as well. And like you said, you know, there's no way that I could get a wonderful audit report like I did without my staff. So they're doing a wonderful job.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Finance Director. Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
Yes, Mr. President, just one item. As authorized by Council's Ordinance 20-111, the city received the deed to the West Market Street property from the Tiffin or Seneca County Land Reutilization Corporation, also known as the Land Bank. And then also has authorized, the mayor signed a deed transferring that property to TSEP. So TSEP now owns that property as a part of all the property that they own along Market Street. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Law Director. Any questions for the Law Director or any of our other officers? Being none, we'll move on to written communications. Oh, beg your pardon, Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for Ann Forrest, or maybe even the Law Director. Usually every year in December, we receive a letter from the State Department of Liquor Control asking if the city would like to have a hearing on any liquor license holder concerning problem areas. Have we received that yet?
No, we have not, Councilman Leopard. It's probably in the mail somewhere, but no, we've not received it yet.
Yeah, I just got mail today that was mailed on December 9th and December 12th.
Hopefully by the next meeting.
Local mail.
Also, if I may add, I'll have to take a look at this issue, but I believe that because of the pandemic, there were some changes to the renewals of liquor permits. And quite possibly that changed the timing of that letter that we typically receive. I don't know that for sure, Steve, but I believe that that may be the case. And I'll try to, I'll gather some information and report back to council in 2 weeks to verify the new schedule that liquor permit renewals are on.
Thank you.
Very good. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to written communications.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have just one letter from the mayor. It's a letter of appreciation to Phyllis Cappuccini. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's on behalf of her, for her donation to the Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division for $200 to be used towards equipment. That concludes the written communications.
Thank you, Council Clerk Forrest, and thank you to Phyllis as well for the donation. We're now under oral communications. Anybody wishing to dialogue with City Council, please click the raise hand button and wait to be let in by Mayor Montz and acknowledged by Council President.
All right, we have a few in our room, so if anyone would like to speak to and address City Council this time, please click the raise hand feature now. I see no hands, Mr. President.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to motions. I don't believe there are any motions. We'll move on to resolutions.
Resolution number, 21-1, introduced by Daniel Perry, Resolution appointing Benjamin Gillig, President pro tempore of Tiffin City Council, beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2021.
Law Director.
Just to clarify that I would consider that the 21-1 resolution was what was approved by City Council earlier in the meeting. That was introduced by Steve Leopard.
Perfect. Thank you. And moving on to resolution number 21-2, introduced by Daniel Perry, resolution approving the reappointment of James D. Supans for a 4-year term on the Sandusky County, Seneca County, City of Tiffin Port Authority from March 2, 2021 until March 1, 2025.
That is the first and only reading of resolution 21-2. Councilman Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for passage of resolution 21-2.
We have a motion for passage of resolution 21-2. Is there a second? Councilman Jones.
I will second that motion, Mr. President.
Very good. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 21-2. If the clerk would take the roll, please.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilman Leopard.
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno.
Yes.
Resolution 21-2 passes on a vote of 6-0. And if I may just share this brief story about Mr. Supans. He and my father had a long running bet on the Ohio State Michigan game of $1. And unfortunately, my dad passed away before, after the results of the 2008 game, and up came Mr. Supans at his funeral with $1 for us. It's one of my all-time favorite stories. So we're very grateful to Mr. Supans for his continued service.
Resolution number 21-3, introduced by Bridget Boyle. Resolution authorizing the sale during calendar year 2021 of municipally owned personal property which is not needed for public use or which is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by internet auction pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15D and declaring an emergency.
That is the first reading of Resolution 21-3. Move on to ordinances.
Ordinance number 20-128, introduced by Bridget Boyle. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept an easement for sanitary sewer purposes from Seneca Assets LLC on 2 parcels of land on Ellis Street and declaring an emergency.
That is the third reading of ordinance 20-128. Councilwoman Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask for council's passage of ordinance 20-128.
We have a motion for passage of ordinance 20-128. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to pass ordinance 20-128. Is there any discussion? If the council clerk could take a vote on the emergency.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno.
Yes.
Emergency passes 6-0. If the council clerk could take roll on passage.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-128 is approved by a vote of 6-0.
Ordinance number 20-139, introduced by Daniel Perry. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept a permanent easement from Imperterritum LLC on 258 Progress Parkway for storm sewer purposes and declaring an emergency.
That is the second reading of ordinance 20-139.
Ordinance number 20-141, introduced by Ben Gillig. Ordinance approving an agreement with the Ohio Attorney General's Office for the collection of delinquent debts owed to the city and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement.
That is the second reading of ordinance 20-141.
Ordinance number 21-1, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance authorizing city administrator to prepare plans and specifications, advertise for and receive bids, and recommend and execute a contract for the 2021 street paving program and declaring an emergency.
That is the first reading of ordinance 21-1. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for suspension of City Council's 3 reading rule and passage of ordinance number 21-1.
Very good. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'll second, Mr. President.
We have a motion and a second for suspension of ordinance 21-1 and immediate passage. Is there any discussion? Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the mayor did a very nice job of explaining the reasoning behind the suspension during his report, but by suspending, it should be a significant cost savings to the citizens of Tiffin, and also it would allow us to select the time that we would like the streets to be paved.
Very well stated, Councilman Leopard. Any additional comments or questions? If the clerk could please take a vote on the suspension.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Suspension passes 6-0. I'm still waiting for the 7th person to be called. Sorry, takes me a second. Suspension passes 6-0. Please take a vote on the emergency.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
and Yanatuno.
Yes.
Emergency passes by a vote of 6-0. Can we take a vote on the passage, please?
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
and Yanatuno.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-1 is approved unanimously by a vote of 6-0. I'd like to thank City Engineer Watson and his department for all his diligent work in preparing this, as well as city administration.
Ordinance number 21-2, introduced by Ben Gillig, ordinance amending budget ordinance 20-122. Provide funds for expenditures approved in 2020 for projects which were not fully completed in that year and must be carried over into 2021.
That is the first reading of ordinance 21-2. And that was introduced by me. Law Director, may I ask procedurally, am I still permitted to ask for suspension acting in this role this evening?
Yes, you can ask for a motion for the suspension of the ordinance.
Very good. I would so move for council suspension of our 3 reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-2. Is there a second? Councilman Perry.
Yeah, I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for suspension of council's 3 reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 21-2. Is there any discussion? I believe this was also outlined very well in the mayor's report and also during committee of the whole. These are bills and ordinances and purchase orders carried over from the previous year. If the clerk could please take a vote on the suspension.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
and Yanatuno.
Yes.
Suspension passes by a vote of 6-0. Take a vote on the passage, please.
Councilman Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
and Yanatuno.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-2 is approved unanimously by a vote of 6-0.
That concludes the ordinances. Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Council Clerk Forrest. Is there any other business or anything for the good of the order this evening? I do have one thing to share, just as part of my collection. I've been doing some digging. Anybody with any fond memories of Skateland?
Yes.
I remember we walked across the street when the old East Junior High was just for 8th graders, and I fell down a lot. Imagine that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to again thank you for your attendance tonight and for all the hard work you do for the city. And with that being said, with no further questions or comments, we stand adjourned at 8:25 p.m. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Good day.
Congrats, Ben.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.